Thistle Valley had been home to ranchers and farmers as early as 1883, but when the railroad came, so did a lot more families. In 1890, the area boasted the start of a branch line serving south-central Utah, and the area took on the name of Thistle after the Canada thistles that dotted the valley. This typical railroad town was home to about 300 people, most of whom raised livestock or worked for the railroad company. But as the railroad streamlined its operations in the 1930s, diesel engines increased the distance between stops. Thistle's workforce dwindled and the town's population shrunk to about a dozen families. Several homes remained, however, until April of 1983, when disaster struck. Heavy winter snow in combination with an excessively wet spring caused a huge landslide just west of town.
The flood was actually a mudslide that came off the mountain on the west side that flowed down into Thistle Creek, and actually a massive amount of mud and dirt came down and kept blocking off, kept flooding into the canyon and raising the dam.
A massive piece of earth slipped from the hillside, creating a mudslick about 1.5 miles long and over 1,000 feet wide, damming up the canyon with a 173-foot-high wall. The Thistle River had no outlet, and the water began to fill the canyon.
As the flood started, the first thing they knew was it actually moved the railroad tracks. And then all of a sudden it started lifting the road up, and it was coming in so fast that you couldn't remove it fast enough, that it just dammed the whole area off and started to build up water behind it.
Crews were brought in quickly to develop a new highway route and to provide an outlet for the water before it flooded the Thistle homes.
My job was to reconstruct the road through Thistle as quickly as possible and restore the traffic through the area. US 6 is a major highway through the area, and we have a lot of people that work in the mines that needed to get to the mines. A lot of traffic, truck traffic going through the area. So
residents evacuated the town before leaving behind what was to become a giant lake.
Well, it was probably within days that once that started to back the water up, that they knew they was going to have to do something. It was very quickly that they had to get what possessions they could and move out, and I know there was some things left in the homes because they didn't have time to remove them.
It just kept backing up further and further to the south and to the east, and all of those people just lost everything.
With great difficulty, a new route was built, but the rising water couldn't be stopped. Rooftops and other debris haunted the hillside as the water reached 165 feet before the flood could be diverted downstream.
What we've seen is the lake started to form, and it covered the houses. A lot of the roofs on the homes actually was lifted off the homes. They floated around on the lake for a long period of time. Different areas, I remember an old barn was actually picked up, and when the lake was finally receded, it was set back down, and it was quite a distance from where it originally was located.
After several months, crews were finally finding success in draining the lake.
As it receded, the tremendous amount of silt that had flowed down Soldier Creek, which was down Highway 6, into the area, brought a lot of silt into the area, and it deposited that in the lower end of the valley, which would be around the Thistle area. And in some places that silt was actually 12 to 14 feet thick. As the homes started to emerge out of the water, as the lake was actually drained down, that actually I had the opportunity to go by and look at some of the homes, which were probably half full of silt. Some of them, I remember there's an old home there that had a Volkswagen car in. You could just see the top of the car. And as the water receded, those trees were bare, and on the trees you had the silt, and the landscape was just bare. It kind of looked like the moon pictures, the moon shots of a barren area.
The lake was gone, but so was the town. It would never live again. Today, parts of houses still make their home in the rocks and brush of the hills, Thistle has become a true ghost town. No one lives there, and no one can.
You got to sympathize with the people that was devastated so quickly in the area that, I thought about that a lot during the time that we were working there, that those people were actually totally uprooted out of their homes with very little bit of time, probably grabbed what few possessions they could and left the area.
The few